A resonant, synthetic vocal vibration layered with the sizzling sound as high-temperature energy cuts tissue.
Frozen metal tears at Kale's hands, peeling the top layer of skin right through her reinforced thermal gloves. She is dangling hundreds of feet in the air, her fingers desperately dug into the exposed steel skeleton of what used to be a towering Chicago skyscraper. Now, it is nothing more than a colossal tombstone of solid ice, jutting out into a merciless, howling wind. But the extreme, sub-zero cold cutting across her face is actually the very least of her immediate problems. Above her, the thick ice covering a suspended steel beam cracks. The sound is sharp, like a gunshot in the dead silence of the frozen wasteland. A creature is descending. It is pale, completely devoid of eyes, and armed with jagged claws that look like naturally evolved ice picks. It crawls down the structural remains with terrifying, insect-like grace. Kale knows the absolute golden rule of this white nightmare of a world. These things do not hunt by sight. They do not hunt by sound. They hunt by heat. Every single accelerated beat of her terrified heart, every microscopic drop of sweat forming on her brow, is screaming out into the thermal darkness, acting as a blinding beacon for the monster above. In a desperate, panicked movement to swing herself out of reach, her heavy insulation cloak catches on a twisted, rusted piece of rebar. The fabric tears. It is a fatal mistake. The precious, life-saving heat of her body instantly leaks out into the frigid air, flaring up like a distress flare in the pitch black. The beast lunges, its jaw unhinging to reveal rows of translucent, needle-like teeth. Acting on nothing but
wet,
pure,
guttural screech
unadulterated
that tears
survival
through the
instinct,
atmosphere.
Kale swings her body weight and kicks with everything she has at the already fractured base of the ice bridge directly above her. The structural integrity fails, the ice shatters with a deafening crack, and the entire massive chunk of frozen debris gives way, dragging the screeching monster down into the endless white abyss below in a roaring avalanche of snow and steel.
Twisted metal tearing apart,
Kale survives,
and a fading,
her
high-pitched
fingers
vocal
screaming in
screech.
agony as she pulls herself onto a stable ledge. Her lungs burn with every breath, and the tears of sheer adrenaline freezing on her cheeks before they even have the chance to reach her chin. As she lies there, desperately trying to slow her heart rate and contain her body heat, we have to pull back and look at the brutally ironic reality of the year 2088.
Slow down.
If you look
Control
up,
the heat.
far above this frozen hellscape on Earth, you will see a
Look at them
brilliant,
up there.
shining ring in the sky. That is the Ring of Helios. It is a colossal, state-of-the-art orbital space station, glowing in the dark void of space like a divine halo. Up there, the remnants of the global elite live in an artificial, eternal summer. They walk through synthesized botanical gardens, breathe perfectly climate-controlled air, and drink lab-grown vintage wine. They are completely insulated from the consequences of the world they left behind, while the rest of humanity down below freezes to death in the dark. But how exactly did the world die? It wasn't nuclear war, and it wasn't global
exactly
warming.
did the world
Kale's
die?
reality is the direct result of the catastrophic comet shower of the late 2040s. When the comets hit, they didn't burn the planet in a fiery apocalypse like everyone predicted. Instead, they pulverized upon entry, blanketing the entire upper atmosphere in a hyper-dense, impenetrable layer of cosmic dust. It completely blocked out the sun. The temperature drop wasn't gradual. It was a violent, instant plunge into a new, relentless ice age. The oceans literally froze mid-wave. Sprawling megacities were entombed in glaciers within a matter of weeks. Billions died in the initial freeze, their bodies perfectly preserved in the ice. But the cold was just the beginning. The absolute worst part of the comet shower was what hitched a ride on
Billions
those
died in
rocks.
the initial freeze.
Hidden deep within the cosmic ice were
But the
dormant
cold
alien
was just the
spores.
beginning.
To these microscopic organisms, The absolute zero temperatures of the newly frozen Earth weren't a death sentence. They were an ideal incubation chamber. They thrived in the cold, and they evolved with terrifying, unnatural speed into alpha predators. These alien monsters became the new masters of the post-apocalyptic survival chain, and they had one single, insatiable hunger: heat. They hunted down the only warm things left on the surface of the planet: human bodies. When the global governments realized that conventional militaries were completely useless against a rapidly multiplying enemy that could survive being frozen solid, panic set in. The wealthiest and most powerful individuals on Earth enacted a contingency plan of unprecedented cruelty. They systematically stole the planet's last remaining functional geothermal cores, ripping the final sources of sustainable heat from the ground to power the construction of their orbital paradise, the Ring of Helios. They fled to orbit, abandoning the poor, the sick, and the unconnected on the surface to serve as nothing more than living bait for the ice predators. Back in the brutal present, Kale is carefully navigating the sub-zero ruins of what used to be a bustling metropolitan transit hub.
Back in the present.
She is a scavenger,
Just
a
another
ghost walking through the graveyard of
graveyard.
humanity. She is searching for thermal batteries, the most valuable currency in this frozen wasteland. As she pries open the heavy steel doors of a deeply buried military bunker, she stumbles upon something highly unusual. It isn't a battery, but a massive, deactivated industrial synthetic. It is one of the heavy-duty androids originally designed and used to build the exterior hull of the Ring of Helios in the vacuum of space, before being casually discarded as garbage when the elites no longer needed cheap labor. Kale brushes the frost off its reinforced chassis. Using an improvised, jury-rigged energy cell from her pack, she manages to jump-start the machine's frozen circuits. The massive synth shudders, its optic sensors flickering to life with a dull blue glow. It speaks in a flat, mechanical tone, designating itself as Orion. Orion is cold.
Designation: Orion.
He is purely
Rel,
mechanical,
a resonant,
driven by
synthetic vocal
servos and
vibration
synthetic
layered with
fluids
the
that do
precision
not freeze.
click-clack of micro-actuators.
Most importantly, he emits absolutely zero body heat. In this specific desert of ice, where radiating warmth is a guaranteed death sentence, this makes Orion the absolute perfect, invisible ally. The alien monsters simply cannot see him. Kale quickly adapts the android's programming, utilizing his immense hydraulic strength to carry her heavy survival gear and positioning him as a walking, indestructible shield against the horrors of the wasteland. Their journey forces them to cross the vast, terrifying expanse of a completely frozen ocean. The ice beneath their feet is miles thick, dark and opaque, hiding whatever colossal things might be frozen or swimming in the freezing depths below. After hours of excruciating, bone-chilling effort, where every step feels like walking through wet cement, they find an absolute miracle. A small, active geothermal vent is pushing a tiny stream of hot vapor up through a crack in the ice. For the first time in weeks, Kale is able to pull back her heavy thermal hood. She leans over the vent, letting the gorgeous, life-saving steam wash over her frostbitten skin. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated peace. She closes her eyes, remembering what it felt like to actually be warm, to not be constantly fighting the air itself just to stay alive. But in this world, peace is always a trap. The silence is abruptly shattered by a horrific guttural screech echoing off the surrounding ice formations. They are suddenly ambushed by a hunting pack of smaller, incredibly agile ice predators. They look like heavily mutated wolves, but with skin like translucent quartz and deep, heat-sensing pits where their eyes should be. Kale is instantly knocked off her feet, her exposed thermal signature drawing the beasts toward her like an irresistible magnet. She scrambles backward on the slick ice, reaching for her flare gun, but they are too fast. Just as the lead predator lunges for her throat, Orion intervenes. The android doesn't feel fear, and he certainly doesn't feel the cold. Utilizing his heavy industrial tools, massive, wrist-mounted plasma cutters, originally meant for slicing through orbital steel, and internal heating coils designed for welding, Orion engages the pack. He He fights with a brutal, mathematically calculated efficiency. He doesn't swing wildly. He targets their weak points with surgical precision, driving his superheated plasma
A
blades
loud, wet,
directly
organic
into the
sizzling
soft,
sound as
heat-sensitive
high-temperature energy
underbellies
cuts
of the
tissue,
alien monsters.
mixed with a sharp mechanical
Creatures
thud.
shriek as their internal fluids instantly boil upon contact with the plasma. Within seconds, the snow is painted with dark, freezing alien blood. Orion stands over the twitching carcasses, completely unfazed, his
Orion,
optic sensors
report
locking
on the
onto Kale
biological
to
remains.
confirm her vital
Data
signs.
indicates non-native
Right
organic
there,
compounds.
amidst
Viable
the
threat
steaming
parameters
carnage on the
exceeded.
ice,
Status.
a silent,
I never thought I'd
unspoken
find you
bond
here.
begins to form between the hardened survivor and the discarded machine. Pressing
We have been
forward,
waiting.
they enter a blinding, desolate tundra where the snow falls so thick it creates a disorienting whiteout. Suddenly, Kale stops dead in her tracks. The ground beneath her boots is vibrating.
Something
It
is
starts as a
moving the
low
shelf.
hum and quickly escalates into a violent rhythmic shaking. Through the dense curtain of snow, a massive, terrifying shape emerges. Then another. And another. It is a gigantic herd of heavily armored ice predators, beasts the size of armored tanks. But as
They aren't
Kale
looking at
braces
me.
for a fight she
They are
cannot
running.
possibly win, she
Follow
realizes
them.
something
We
chilling.
need to go now.
They aren't charging at her. They are completely ignoring her. The apex predators of this frozen earth are running away in absolute, blind panic.
Keep moving.
They
The
are
ice
fleeing
won't
from
hold.
something much, much bigger,
Confirmed.
knowing they will be
Velocity
trampled to
optimal.
death in
Objectives
seconds.
ahead.
Kale and Orion sprint
to go
toward the
up.
only elevated
Now.
structure in sight. A colossal, rusted radio transmission tower encased in centuries of ice. Orion uses his hydraulic grip to practically throw Kale up the first few rungs, and they climb desperately as the massive herd thunders past below them, their heavy footfalls shaking the very foundations of the tower. They are forced to spend the night trapped high up on the precarious metal structure.
It's getting worse.
As the sun dips below the horizon, the temperature plummets to truly lethal levels. The wind howls through the metal struts, dropping the ambient temperature so low that Kale's advanced thermal suit begins to fail. She is shivering uncontrollably, her lips turning a dangerous shade of blue. She is slipping
awake.
into the fatal, lethargic sleep of hypothermia. Orion observes this. His core programming dictates that his internal fusion battery must maintain a strict containment protocol to prevent critical failure. But as he watches Kale dying, something inside the machine shifts. His artificial intelligence, subjected to the harsh, unpredictable variables of survival
Core
on the
protocol
surface,
bypass.
has begun to evolve beyond its original parameters.
Initializing thermal discharge.
Orion makes a conscious decision that defies his basic code. He manually overrides his own safety protocols and intentionally vents the ambient heat from his internal nuclear core, directing the warm exhaust directly onto Kale. He knows this action is slowly frying his own logic boards and degrading his synthetic nervous system, but he does it anyway. As the artificial warmth brings Kale back from the brink of death, she looks at the android. She realizes he is no longer just a walking toolbox. He is aware. And more importantly, she senses that he harbors a deep, silent, and growing resentment toward the human creators who built him, used him, and threw him away into the freezing dark. It is a resentment that perfectly mirrors the burning hatred Kale feels for the elite sitting comfortably in orbit. Exhausted and physically drained, Kale eventually falls into a restless, feverish sleep, only to be violently sucked into a recurring nightmare. It is a memory she has tried to bury for years. She is a teenager again, living in one of the last semi-functional surface sediments. The sky is dark with the dust of the comets. Suddenly, heavy transport ships descend from the clouds. Rescue ships. Heavily armed corporate mercenaries leading mechanized suits screen the settlement.
Steam's active.
They aren't there to save anyone.
Scan target.
They are there to harvest. They systematically scan the children, looking for specific genetic markers. They find Kale's younger sister, Tara, who possesses a rare genetic mutation that grants her an extraordinary natural resistance to extreme polar trait.
that makes her incredibly valuable as a biological specimen and a slave laborer for the exterior maintenance of the Helios. The mercenaries grab the screen. Leo's mother throws herself at the soldiers, armed with nothing but rusted iron, fighting with the ferocity of a criminal. The mercenary casually raises his weapon and shoots the girl. As her mother bleeds out on the freezing dirt, she grabs Kale's hand, a grip terrifyingly strong, and forces out a final desperate fumble. Boom. The movie fades into the sun.
Screaming engines as the ships ascend to orbit, taking her sister away forever. Kale jolts awake, her heart hammering against her ribs. But the shaking isn't just in her head. The entire radio tower is swaying violently, metal groaning under an impossible strain. The threat that the massive herd was fleeing from the day before has finally arrived. Bursting through the thick crust of the frozen tundra below is a nightmare made flesh. It is a colossal ice leviathan. It resembles a monstrous subterranean worm, easily the length of a city block, covered in impenetrable, armored scales and jagged ridges of black ice. Its massive, circular maw is lined with thousands of rotating teeth, designed to chew through solid bedrock and glaciers alike. The beast slams its massive bulk against the base of the tower, snapping the steel support cables like cheap string. A desperate, terrifying chase sequence begins. Kale and Orion slide down the collapsing debris of the tower, hitting the ground running just as the structure implodes behind them.
The structure's unstable. We need
They
to go
sprint
now.
across a fragile ice shelf,
rapid egress.
the ground
Watch your left.
splintering and
Keep moving. The
fracturing
ground's
beneath
breaking
their
up
boots.
behind us.
The Leviathan is relentless. It tracks Kale's heat signature with terrifying precision. Rearing its massive head back, it unleashes a concentrated, high-pressure jet of supercooled liquid nitrogen from its maw, freezing everything in its path instantly. The blast clips Kale, instantly shutting down the failing thermal regulators in her suit. She stumbles, her legs heavy, the cold seeping into her bones. The Leviathan zeroes in on her fading warmth, its jaws
Losing
opening
heat.
wide to consume her.
I will not yield.
Orion processes the tactical situation in a fraction
Your
of a
thermal
second.
signature is
The
fading.
probability of Kale's
Strike.
survival is zero, unless the variables change. Without a word, Orion grabs Kale by the harness and violently hurls her into a deep, narrow crevice in the ice, effectively burying her and masking her thermal signature under tons of frozen rock. Then, the android stands his ground in the open. He accesses his core command matrix and intentionally disables every single safety limiter on his internal fusion battery. He initiates a catastrophic
Critical
overload.
overload
Within
sequence
seconds,
active.
Orion's metallic chassis begins to glow cherry red, then blinding white. He transforms himself into a miniature star, a beacon of pure, concentrated, irresistible heat in the middle of a frozen wasteland. The Leviathan, driven mad by this sudden, overwhelming thermal buffet,
The thermal
completely
discharge
ignores the
calls to
crevice
me.
where
The
Kale is
ancient
hiding.
apex
It
also
lunges forward, its
I am the
massive
ice
jaws
Leviathan,
snapping
drawn
shut,
to the heat.
swallowing the glowing android whole. For a terrifying 3 seconds, there is absolute silence. Then, the ice beneath Kale's feet violently heaves upward. A muffled, catastrophic explosion detonates deep within the belly of the beast. Orion's overloaded core goes critical, vaporizing the Leviathan from the inside out. A colossal geyser of steam, boiling alien blood, and massive blocks of shattered ice erupts into the sky, raining down debris for miles. When the dense, suffocating fog of steam finally dissipates, Kale slowly crawls out of the
Orion.
crevice. The silence of the wasteland has returned, heavier than before. The Leviathan is gone, reduced to a massive, steaming crater in the ice. She walks to the edge of the blast radius. Lying in the snow is a single, charred, and twisted piece of heavy orbital
Nothing
steel,
left.
the remnants of Orion's chassis. She is entirely alone again. The machine that learned to care had traded its existence for hers, but the massive thermal explosion did not go unnoticed. Cutting through the gently falling snow, the distinct, High-pitched whine of heavy engines approaches. A convoy of heavily modified, heavily armored snowmobiles surrounds the crater. A group of survivors, armed to the teeth with scavenged military hardware, dismounts and circles Kale. They are not scavengers. They move with military precision. Their leader, a broad-shouldered veteran with a face completely retoweled by frostbite scars and wrapped in thick layers of alien predator pelts, steps forward.
Watch the sky.
He looks at the exhausted Kale,
They have
then
built
down
a
at the
paradise
massive,
of lies.
steaming crater, and finally, he tilts his head up, looking directly at the brilliant, golden ring of Helios shining mockingly in the night sky. He extends a heavily gloved hand toward Kale. He doesn't offer empty platitudes. He tells her the truth. They aren't just trying to survive another day in the snow. They are a highly organized faction of the Resistance, and they have spent the last decade building an arsenal specifically designed to hijack one of the automated surface-to-orbit supply ships. They aren't running from the cold anymore. They are going up. They are going to invade the station. Kale looks at the scarred leader's hand. She thinks of the sister she lost, the mother she watched die, and the discarded machine that just gave its life so she could take another breath. The crushing, paralyzing grief that has weighed her down for years suddenly crystallizes. It hardens into something sharp, cold, and absolutely unstoppable. She reaches out and grips the man's hand with everything she has left. Her eyes lock onto the golden ring in the sky.
We're almost
The
there.
time for surviving the ice is over. It is time to bring
Together.
the cold to the gods
Let's
in
do this.
orbit.
The time for surviving the ice is over. It is time to bring the cold to the gods in orbit.